Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be interviewing a comedy legend in stand-up comedy. Her name is Monica Piper. She was a writer for Roseanne and the Rugrats and Mad About You, and produced Rugrats also. And she was around the stand-up comedy boom in the 80s and probably the late 70s. I'm going to ask her. And it's going to be pretty cool. Monica Piper is one of those comedians during the oversaturation of the comedy boom that got lost in the shuffle. But she's got clips on YouTube on an evening at the Improv. She is fucking hilarious. And I can't wait to have her on today. So yeah, here is my interview with Monica Piper.
Hello.
Hey Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Are we on already?
Oh, yes we are.
Oh, well, hi everybody. I wouldn't have answered hello. I would have been a little more sexy. Hello.
Well, I like sexy, I'll tell you.
Hello.
So how are you today?
I'm good. Everything is good right now. I'm happy to, well, except for the news and politics, but I don't know. I don't think we want to get into that right now.
No.
Because then I'm not good. But everything else is good.
That is awesome. It's such an honor. Thank you for coming on today.
It's my pleasure.
So, going back to the beginning, were you always funny growing up?
Yes. As a matter of fact, my show, Not That Jewish, really deals with that at a very early age. My father saying, "Kid, you're funny." And it kind of goes off from there. So, and it's interesting because when my marriage falls apart in the middle of my play, but in real life many years, obviously earlier, one of the reasons is my ex-husband-to-be says, "Did it ever occur to you that maybe you're just not that funny?" Oh. There's this stunned look on my face, and the sound of Psycho, you know, wah, 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 the stabbing of Psycho sound. And then I just pause and say I divorced him 3 months later, which I did. And then I immediately turned my life to comedy and auditioned at the Comedy Store, and the rest, as they say, is history. So, yes, I had an inkling that I was funny at a very early age because my father was the funniest man I ever knew, and funniest person, one of the funniest people I ever knew. And when he told me I was funny, it meant everything to me. And but I never thought of pursuing it as a career because back then it just wasn't what nice Jewish girls did. You know, I was taught early on that I had to go to college and have a real career, and so I became a high school English teacher. But this, you know, circumstances and kind of a need, you know, they say comedians, they don't choose comedy, comedy chooses you. So
right.
It just did.
Wow.
And I finally got rid of all those predetermined ideas, the ideas that were predetermined for me, and went for it. I'm glad I did.
Mm-hmm. Did you come from a funny family overall?
Yeah, really funny. I mean, again, if you see my play, and hopefully it will come up north soon, you'll see that I did grow up with a very funny parents. Very different, but funny. My father was more shticky, more physical comedy, more silly, but he could always make me laugh. I mean, even without saying a word, we'd be in a restaurant, he'd do check takes. You know, like he'd look at every time we'd be in a restaurant, he'd look at the check and do something really silly, like pretend to wipe his mouth with the napkin and then look at the actual check and then start wiping his forehead and his underarm. You know, like it's just funny to look at. I can't do it on a podcast, but it was really funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, he made me laugh. My mother was more sarcastic and more witty, more droll. So I'm kind of a combination of the two of them.
Nice.
You know, my comedy is physical and funny, but it's also hopefully, you know, smart and dry. So.
Did you watch?
Yeah, I came from funny people.
Did you watch comedians on the Ed Sullivan Show and the Hollywood Palace growing up?
Oh yeah, we always did. We watched the comedians, and my parents had, you know, Kathy Ladin and I were talking about this. We shared that in common, that they had funny comedy albums.
Yeah.
So I grew up listening to Robert Klein, and I just thought Child of the 50s was the funniest thing. And of course, back then, Bill Cosby. But, you know, it's just easy to forget now, with what we think of him, that he was a really funny guy. So, nothing funny about him now, but...
Yeah, unfortunately.
But grew up listening to those. And my father would... And my father loved Red Fox, too. But I wasn't allowed to listen to him.
Yeah.
They said, no, you're too young. So, of course, all I wanted to do was listen to him when I was forbidden to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had the same thing with Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that shows the difference in our ages. But I don't think Eddie Murphy would be Eddie Murphy were it not for guys, and Richard Pryor, were it not for Red Fox coming before them, you know?
Yeah.
But he was so dirty, but he was so funny.
Yeah. So who were your main comedy influences?
My main comedy influences, actually, number one is my father. And then as far as stars, Richard Pryor for sure. I was joking actually with another really funny friend, Sue Kalinsky, who's a really good friend of mine and Kathy's. And I was saying, you know, if I could just, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this in the podcast, but you can bleep it, I guess.
Oh, you can swear all you want.
Oh, great. You know, I have this joke about my dog being a retriever, but he's from L.A.
Yeah.
You know, like, go get the ball. We're not taking the car. You know, that's the dog. But then I have another line about the dog actually hunting. You know, I could see him actually hunting. Yeah, I'm getting the duck. It's not going anywhere. You shot it, didn't you? That's the joke. And I said to Sue, it'd be so much funnier if I could say, you shot the motherfucker, didn't you? You know, Richard Pryor would say that, and it would get a huge laugh. But I can't just add motherfucker to everything, you know. It's not me. It's not my character, my persona. But it would make it so much funnier. So, Richard Pryor for sure. And actually, you know, before I started doing stand-up, I was still teaching school, but I was in an improv group that performed at the Holy City Zoo.
Oh.
And it was Robin Williams and Buzz Belmondo and Jose Simone. and Kathy Keeley. And we were called Sons of the Sunset because the zoo was on Sunset.
Yeah.
So because we go on late at the end at the Holy City Zoo, I watched a lot of comics. And Dana Carvey always made me laugh. You know, people think of Dana Carvey as the church lady and all his SNL characters. But if you've ever seen him do stand-up, he's so funny. I mean, he's just so funny. You know, if you look at his HBO specials, he is one of the few people who still makes me laugh out loud. And I think it's because, like Richard Pryor, he does characters, he does people, and he does the voices, but he's also such a funny physical comedian. His face, his facial expressions.
Right.
So that, unlike a comic who has really clever jokes, like someone like Stephen Wright, who I love, but
me too.
Who, once you hear the joke, you've heard the joke. You can hear it 4 more times, 5 more times, and still laugh at the cleverness of it. But when Dana Carvey does a bit or Pryor does a bit, I'm laughing every single time out loud because it's not just the joke itself. It's the physicality that goes with it. It's the character he becomes. It's the voice that character has, you know, whether he's doing people or even his heart when he's having a heart attack, Pryor, his heart talking to him, you know. You know, I'm sorry, God, I'm sorry. You know, it's even God talking to him. Well, you know, I'm sorry. Please, I'll never do it again. You wasn't thinking about that when you was eating that pork, was you, motherfucker? You know, and just, you know, having just bringing to life things like a deflated tire because he shot it. He shot his wife was trying to leave and he shot the tire, and he has the tire talking, and you're laughing. You know, it's not just a joke.
Right.
Everything around the joke, and of course the timing is perfect, but it's just also the acting out. You know, that's why you can laugh at it every single time. So Dana Carvey is one of my influencers, I'd say.
Nice.
And but you know, you don't want to think that you're copying someone, because you're not. You know, the whole game is to try to be something no one else is. I mean, that's really the game, to create this persona that they haven't seen before, that's not a copy of, you know, I guess I start with who makes me laugh and why. And when I'm writing a new bit, I guess that's where the influence comes in. You know, I'm not trying to be Richard Pryor, I'm not trying to be Dana Carvey, but I'm saying, what about them makes me laugh? And how can I take that and make them laugh, make other people, you know, make the audience laugh? So,
of course.
So that always comes. And it's funny, too, because I do a lot of stuff in my backyard. Sometimes I just need to get out of my house, and I go into my backyard, and there are these neighbors who are across the fence and up. There's like a little two apartments across, and they can look down and see me, and they just see a crazy lady in her pajamas. Like one time I was trying to really capture a funny old person's walk, you know, in order to be this old person that I ran into. And they don't know that I'm doing comedy. They don't know that I'm working on the physical aspects of a bit. They just see a crazy lady in her pajamas walking around like a 100-year-old woman. And it just makes me laugh to think that they have no idea,
Yeah.
what I'm really doing. But I try to work out funny physical stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Now, I had no idea that you were part of that San Francisco sketch comedy scene in the 70s. That's awesome. I was curious.
I was very much a part. I have photos. I have a lot of photos of us, and you and Robin looks so young in those photos. I mean, it was like really right before he hit it big. It was before Mork and Mindy, and I just remember when Robin died, what a shock, of course, it was. The shock waves were unbelievable, but so many people who knew him after he was famous were posting, and I just felt compelled to write something about knowing him before he was famous, and the generosity, the incredible generosity he was, the generosity he offered in an improv situation.
Yeah.
That, just to make the other person, to give the other person he was playing with up there every possible opportunity to be funny,
Yeah.
And
I get so mad when... Oh, go ahead.
Those were incredible times. The Holy City Zoo in the 70s, the people that were coming through. And again, just watching guys like Dana Carvey and then Sons of the Sunset morphed into papaya juice, and I was part of that. But then I left and I quit teaching and moved to LA. As I say in my show, when I say my show, I'm not referring to my act. I'm referring to Not That Jewish.
Yeah.
And I say I left teaching. I had to. I couldn't handle the money and prestige. That's the joke. But the reality was, I did love those kids. But I knew when I was teaching high school, I realized that I was, in a sense, doing 5 sets a day with hecklers.
Yeah.
So why not? That's when I realized more than ever, between that and performing at night at the zoo, that this is what I had to do, and this is what I really was meant to be doing.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it was a great time. It was a kind of a golden age at the zoo.
Yeah.
And I was glad to be part of it.
Did you ever see Bullshot Crummond?
Yes. Very funny.
I've seen the PBS performance of it on YouTube. I do not know how they did not become super successful, because they were talented and funny, those people.
So funny. So many people that came up through improv and just kind of stayed there and didn't really go on to do stand-up as well.
Yeah.
So many great talents were undiscovered, and I agree with you completely. So many talented people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what year did you move to LA and get to the Comedy Store?
well, I moved to LA in 77, and it was really uncharted territory for me, all of it. I lived in Venice, and I became a singing waitress at a restaurant where all the entertainers sang or did whatever they did. They didn't just sing. And Michael Winslow,
Oh yeah, from Police Academy. Yeah.
Winslow, who does sound effects. He was a waiter there. Katie Seagal was a waitress, and she, of course, went on to be really famous. But she was a singer before she was an actress, and
Wow.
she was fabulous. I mean, it was really fun, but the reason it was so important to me was I had a stage. You know, at every hour of my shift, it was kind of had a different feel. Like 5 o'clock-ish, you'd sing folk songs or maybe show tunes or light rock, and then later on in the evening, it became more rock and roll. And but what I was able to do late night was I'd sit on top of the piano, and the busboy was the piano player, and he would play the blues, and I would sing a little, but then I would talk. So I made it into a talking blues where I could try out all the jokes that I'd written that day. So I was really lucky. I didn't go to a lot of open mic nights. I had a built-in place to work out my material. So I really was lucky because I had that, and most comics don't have that, you know. They have to go to open mic nights or, you know, and sign up, put their name in a hat, whatever, and then do 5 minutes. Well, I had the luxury of doing more than 5 minutes and finding out what jokes worked, what jokes didn't. And it took, you know, I was a waitress there for, I think, 4 years. And by 1980, I thought I had enough to at least audition at the Comedy Store. And this is in my play, too, in Not That Jewish. It shows my first, you know, the lights dim, the spotlight comes up.
Right.
And I do like 4 minutes of stand-up. And so the audience actually that's watching the play becomes the audience at the Comedy Store. They're part of it, you know. They're the audience witnessing my first audition at the Comedy Store. And then from that moment on, the play changes to my career as a stand-up and adopting a child and taking him with me on the road. And, you know, a lot of the comics remembered that I was on the road with who have come to see the play. They go, "Oh my God, I remember when you were on the road with your baby." You know, honest to God, I would hand him to a bouncer and say, "Here, hold this." And I'd go do my thing, and then I'd pick up the baby, and we go back to the hotel. You know, I'd say I was a stay-at-hotel mom. So, yeah, but so I moved to LA in 77, but I didn't audition at the Comedy Store until 1980. And then I immediately became a regular at the Comedy Store. But, you know, back then, and still, I mean, today, but back then the women were unless you were famous like Roseanne or Elaine Boozler, the women were separated from the men.
Right.
You know, we were up in the belly room. No one saw the girls in the main room. So the next goal became, the first goal was to get into the Comedy Store, and I did that. And the belly room was actually great because I was making great friends.
Right.
I mean, that's when I became really good friends with Sue Kalinsky, who's one of my best friends to this day. And Elaine Boozler and Carrie Snow. And
I love Carrie.
You know, Carrie's the greatest. And Diane Nichols. And, I mean, I don't know, Sandra Bernhardt was up there all the time. Lois Brumfield.
Love Lois,
really
too.
Funny women. Joanne Deering and Lucy Webb. I mean, so we all became really good friends. We were all in it together, you know, the girls of the belly room. And Mitzi Shore was great. She loved us. But we still had that hurdle of getting down to the original room. So that became the next goal, to be good enough to get spots downstairs. And when that started happening, things got really good. And I started getting bookings on the road. And so the 80s, I was at the store, but I was also starting to go on the road as an opening act, then I became a middle act, then I became a headliner. So, I mean, that was pretty much the 80s and the early 90s. And then I got my Showtime special and was nominated for an American Comedy Award. But then everything really took a turn because I already had my baby, and when he was 7 months old, I get a call from Roseanne that I want you to write on the show. We need a strong female voice to write on the show. Oh, and congratulations on the baby. That's so cool. And I was dumbfounded. I was in awe. I was like, are you kidding me? I just got offered a job on the #1 show on television, and I can leave the road and have a steady paycheck, and the money's good, and it only gets better. Of course, what she didn't say was, oh, and that cute baby of yours, well, you're never, ever, ever going to see him again. Because they kept us there till 4 in the morning. So, but it was great. But I was so torn. You know, it was really a time I was so torn. On the one hand, I absolutely loved being in a writer's room. I mean, there's no greater thrill than when you pitch a joke and it gets in the script and you're so excited. But on the other hand, I wasn't seeing my child, and it was driving me crazy. Plus, you know, it was just a timing thing. Mm-hmm. So I stuck out the season. I left and went back on the road, and really was working a lot. And that's when I was bringing him with me all over the country and everything.
Oh.
You know, and then it changed again because I got offered a job to write on Rugrats.
Yeah.
So that seemed doable because even though I love writing on sitcoms, it just seemed like the hours were reasonable. I could work a day, every day, go into work, leave at 5, pick up my kid at 6, and that felt more normal. And then when he got older, I went back to sitcoms, and I wrote on Mad About You, which was such a great show.
Yeah, I love that show.
And then that ended, and because the series ended, and I worked on Veronica's Closet for a while, that show with Kirstie Alley.
Yeah.
But that was just, it wasn't, Mad About You was a great show. Roseanne was a great show. And this one, it was okay, it was okay. And there were like 3 women on the writer's staff. There were 16 writers, and 3 of them were women, or 11 writers on that show, and 3 of them were women. And I don't know. And everyone, I don't know. I don't want to talk bad about that show. But, any show you work on is it's an experience because you're learning things and you're honing your skills. But then they invited me back at Klasky Chupo, which is a great animation studio. They invited me back to be the head writer of Rugrats and the producer of Rugrats. And so I went back and loved it. I loved being the head writer, and And the year after that, we won an Emmy.
Yeah,
So
that must have been surreal for you.
it was surreal. It was great. But it was funny. You know, they go, "You nominated for an Emmy." It's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to need a gown." And they go, "Well, it's the daytime Emmy because it's animation." I went, "Oh, okay, cool. A sassy cocktail dress." And they said, "Well, it's the Creative Arts Daytime Emmys. It's like on a Tuesday." So I went,
Yeah.
"Great, I can go in my pajamas." But we won. So that was very cool.
Yeah, I've had a couple experiences with some of the cast of Rugrats. E.G. Daily, I met her at a HorrorCon a couple years ago, and she was an absolute doll. I enjoyed meeting her.
She's great. She's so great.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that voice, how a grown woman can, how those voices can come out of grown women. You know, a baby's got to do what a baby's got to do. I can't do it. I just sound like a drunk version of me. But,
yeah, I said to her, "My name is Tommy," and she was like, "Oh, that's my name too."
yeah. My favorite was Chucky. You know, Chucky. Gee, Tommy, you sure are my bestest friend. But the coolest part about leaving sitcoms and going back to animation was like when I had a script due for Mad About You, I'd have to say to my son, who was like, I think he was 7 at that time, and I said, "Honey, I can't. My script. I got a script due. You know what it's like when I have a script due. So here's a frozen dinner. Enjoy yourself. Goodbye. I can't deal with anything right now except my script." But then when I went to Rugrats again, it was so cool because I'd say to Jake, my son, "Come here, I need a joke for Chucky." You know, and he'd go, "Oh, okay." So how about he thinks he ate a bug? So I went, "Okay, I can work with that. That's funny." So it was great. And he actually once gave me an idea for a show. You know, and what if Tommy, what if Bill is jealous of what if Tommy's jealous of Bill because Bill's playing with Spike and Spike is Tommy's dog? And I went, there's something there. Let me think about it. Let's talk about it. And it was so great to see my son literally thinking like a comedy writer, you know?
Yeah.
And we came up, and I wrote it up. I mean, of course, I developed it way beyond that initial premise, but and it got produced. It was called Share and Sheriff Fight, and I insisted that Jake get a credit. So, you know how in the beginning of Rugrats it always goes, "Ba-ba,"
Yeah.
and then it gives the title, "Ba-ba."
Yeah.
So it said, "Ba-ba, Share and Sheriff Fight, Ba-ba," based on an idea by Jake Piper, written by Monica Piper. And for his birthday, I had that freeze framed and blown up and framed, and I gave it to him for his birthday. You know, the picture of the opening credit with his name, and he was so funny. He was at a Cub Scout meeting. We were all there with the Cub Scouts, and he said, "I have to." I wanted to almost kill him for saying this because it sounded so pretentious, but it was funny. He said, "I have to leave soon. My episode's on tonight." My episode's airing tonight. That's what he said.
Aw.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And because Rugrats was so popular, his friends, he was like, it was so cool for him that his mother did this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Now he could care less about anything I do. So, but anyway.
I reached, and I also reached out to Melanie Chardoff for an interview, and she had to decline. But then I got a Facebook friend request from her, and she subscribed to my YouTube channel.
Oh, that's so cool. She's a friend of mine. I love Melanie. She's a good writer on her own. You know, not just the voice of Dee Dee.
She's a national treasure.
She's really a smart, funny, talented writer, entertainer, storyteller. Yes. She's great. She's absolutely great.
She's a national treasure. I've always enjoyed her in everything. I found out recently she did stand up. Did you ever see it?
No, I never saw her do stand up, but I've seen her do storytelling, which is, you know, storytelling's like a cousin of stand up.
Right.
For the people that do funny stories, I'm talking, you know, like the people who do the Moth and stuff like that. And the storytelling scene down here is really huge. There's just so many venues for storytelling. And I love storytelling because unlike stand-up, you don't have to get a laugh every 10 seconds, you know, and you can get serious too. You can, you know, my play actually began early on by writing all these stories and performing all these stories, and someone at Jewish Women's Theater said, you know, you really should put these together and find a reason for all these to be in one place and figure out a really strong beginning, middle, and end, and a through line, and so kind of that's how my play started to evolve from all these storytelling things. So I've seen Melanie do great storytelling, but I've never seen her do stand up.
Yeah, she may have.
She's more of an entertainer.
Yeah,
you know,
she can do it all. I mean, she can sing.
She's a great entertainer.
Good dramatic actress. I mean, she can just do it all.
Yeah, she's all those things, and she's a really nice person. So that helps.
Obviously, if she's, you know, friend requesting me and subscribing to my channel. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That was around Christmas time. That made my Christmas, I have to say.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing that I just said awesome. I don't say it a lot. And actually, I was fooling around with some new material, and I did it the other night about how certain things old people should never do because it makes them, you know, like when an old person tries to act young, it just makes them look older. Like, don't say awesome. It's not your word. You know. I was playing at the old people's home. It was awesome. You know, you can't do that. It's not your word.
Yeah,
Don't wear a mini skirt. Don't wear a skirt above the knee. Your whole leg looks like a knee.
Hey, you were on Star Search, right?
Oh my God, yes. And I certainly was, and I lost to Sinbad.
Oh, was Rich Scheidner there?
Not when he wasn't on the night I was on.
Because he told me
two comics.
I can't remember what it was. He told me he got beaten by Sinbad on something. I can't remember what though.
It must have been Star Search.
Yeah.
Because Sinbad won. You know, Star Search, their big thing was they get somebody who starts winning, and then they promoted it like 4 in a row. Can anyone beat him tonight? 6 in a row. Can anyone beat him tonight? You know, that was their thing. So, Rich Scheidner, I mean, look at all the great comics that lost to Sinbad.
Yeah.
You know, and I packed so many jokes in that 2 minutes. and I was getting really big laughs, but then Sinbad comes out and just does his thing, and I mean, not that he wasn't funny. Of course, he was funny. I'm not saying I shouldn't have lost. Well, I'm not really saying that, but yeah. So yeah, I was on Star Search.
Did you ever?
So was everyone I know.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody was on there. Did you ever get on the Tonight Show or Letterman?
To look at the list of people who lost and the people who won, because the people who lost in their rounds were all really funny comics who went on to be, have great careers. So Scheidler being a perfect example. He's so funny.
Oh yeah.
He's such a great guy.
Dom Irrera was on there too.
Yeah, that would be a show in itself to just go on and see all these comics when they were so young, and just the whole Star Search format was funny. It was so bizarre that you have to kill in 2 minutes. It was, that is so much harder than having to do 45 minutes.
Right.
To me, give me 45, let me headline. I mean, I can do an hour and have a blast, but for me to sit there and try to figure out 2 minutes is torture.
Yeah.
Torture.
Did you ever get on the Tonight Show or Letterman?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I was just headlining all over the country and getting specials and doing stuff like that, and I know it's the Holy Grail, and it's not like I auditioned and didn't get it. I just didn't. I think I was just too scared, too intimidated, too worried that one bad set could end my career. I don't know. It's something I regret to this day, not pursuing those shows stronger than I did.
Yeah, well, I think it's maybe for the best. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories that Johnny Carson and his booker, Jim McCauley, were absolute bullies to comics,
Well, I was shows where I knew Jim McCauley was in the audience, but he was usually there to see the person that was on right before me. So there were at least 3 times where Jim McCauley would get up and walk out before I even got on stage to go talk to the comic he had just seen. So, but I was in the green room with Roseanne the night she did her first Tonight Show, and that was unbelievable. She, I had met her in Denver. She was an open micer in Denver, and I was already booked at the club there, and so we started hanging out and writing material together, and then when she came out to LA, and she was getting ready to do her first Tonight Show shot, we worked on, she had her material. I'm not saying I wrote any of her material. She's genius, and that was her material, but she asked me if I would help her shape her set. Where's the momentum, where's beginning, middle, end. And so we did work on that together. And then I was in the green room for her first Tonight Show shot, and it was unbelievable what happened after that. Jim McCauley came out. That very night, immediately after her set, she got a call from Herb Nanis, who was a manager, and literally she became a success. She became a star overnight. Her Tonight Show shot was so unbelievable because there had never been anyone like her at all. Never.
Yeah.
And she just, I mean, her world changed right after that. You know, she
Yeah.
got her show, and you know, but it was really a thrill to be there watching it from backstage. So,
What did you think?
Was that.
Mm-hmm. What did you think about her controversy last year?
Oh, I thought it was. I was so disappointed in her. You know, she just has ways of shooting herself in the foot, and I think they had no choice but to do what they did. They had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
NBC, I mean, look at what they had going at the time. They had Scandal. They had How to Get Away with Murder.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they had stars like Henry Washington and Viola Davis, who they could not afford to offend. And they had no choice in this climate to do what they did. And Roseanne was it was such a mistake in judgment to do that, such a lapse of judgment. You know, I understand where she was coming from,
Mm-hmm.
in that she thought she was just making a joke on how the characters in Planet of the Apes are constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Bone structure, the way their faces are constructed. And she saw that as similar to Valerie, no, I want to say Valerie Plame, but that's not it. But, you know, anyway, so when she made that comment, she wasn't thinking like black people look like apes. She was stupid in not realizing that that's how it was being heard. That's how it was being seen. That's how it was being felt. And that was very real. The insult and and I think she was in shock at the aftermath of that.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're that famous, and the show, the revival of the show was such a hit. I mean, it was a ratings monster. So I don't think she believed it would ever come to that.
Mm-hmm.
But she thought she would just apologize or whatever. But it was so swift, and I also think she didn't think the show could be a hit without her, and it went on to be a hit without her. And you know, I don't know. So that's what I thought. I thought, oh God, I thought it was just so stupid and so lack of awareness.
Yeah.
Of what she was saying, even though she, in her mind, thought she was making a joke about that specific person's bone structure compared to the bone structure of the Planet of the Apes characters, whatever. She never saw what she was doing in a broader context, and she just totally blew it. And you know, I just.
It's
and
sad.
then her attitude afterwards, she wasn't. She didn't seem remorseful until way too late, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she honestly didn't see what she had done wrong.
Yeah.
Until you know, time had passed. So.
I think she was pretty confident that it was going to blow over, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you're a big star, you know, it's like like right now, the Felicity Huffman, Laura Loughlin, the school scandal. These people think they're untouchable.
Right.
That nothing can affect them because they're just above it all, and they're not. So now, if only our president. Don't get me started.
Okay. What do you think of today's comedy?
Well, I think it's I think a lot of it is braver and more honest, and I love that about a lot of the comics. But in this quest for to be really honest and in some ways shocking, that some of it is just still isn't that funny,
Yeah.
I'm like commenting to myself, that's very clever, oh, that's a really smart observation, but I'm not laughing. So I don't know, but I have to admit, I'm really not up on who's who right now.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing my play, and I'm also in another play at the same time, and my focus is really shifting to acting. So, which I love more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not in the clubs a lot, seeing who's new and
it's changed.
What.
Yeah, it's changed radically. I'll tell you, I've been doing stand-up since 2006. I started in San Francisco, and it's just not a scene anymore. It's just competitiveness, and there's all these alpha male jerks doing comedy now. It makes me uncomfortable, quite frankly.
And it's also, I mean, there are certain dirty comics that will always make me laugh,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but for the most part, to be dirty just to be dirty without being clever is it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I think it's really harder to be a clean comic.
Yeah.
Really clean, funny comic, and that's the other thing. I hear, the comics that I do hear, they're just kind of talking out an idea.
Right.
Without the craft, literally, I was on the road with Seinfeld early on.
Right.
And he taught me so much about crafting a joke. Where's the pause? If you're writing it out, where's the comma? Where's the in this case, like he once said to me, a 3-syllable word would be funnier there than a 2-syllable word. And I went, okay. And I played with it, and he was so right, because it's just rhythm. It's all, comedy is like jazz, it's the rhythm of it. And so what I'm saying is I watch a lot of comics, and they're up there and they're saying, and this happened, and then blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
and blah, 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 and I'm saying to myself, did you write, every 5 words? Is that how you crafted that joke? Because it's not working. It's like so much of the craft of it, which is so much the fun of working out new material.
Mm-hmm.
When you're just looking for the right word to, and so much of it is the timing,
Mm-hmm.
This is clearly obvious timing in comedy, but I'm not saying anything new, clearly, but it's so important to try it out. There was a line in my play that I knew was funny, but it wasn't getting the laugh that I wanted it to get. So I just started playing
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm talking about. I don't see that so much with a lot of the comics that I see on TV. So,
yeah.
I just want to yell at them. Why did you bother writing this out? It just seems like it's okay. This is a funny idea, so I'm just going to get up and talk. And that's fine if you're in a club, and but if you're doing TV,
Mm-hmm.
at least put in the effort to write it, to craft it. Okay, I sound like an old English teacher.
The comics from your generation that influenced me were Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay, Bobcat Goldthwait, Richard Jeni, Robert Schimmel. I like those edgy guys.
Oh my God, I love every one of them. And Schimmel is a perfect example of a comic who could be really dirty, but so funny. I mean, clever, smart dirty, as opposed to, just being just dirty for shock value,
Yeah.
So, yeah, those were all great. And, oh my God, Jenny. I did a special with Jenny. I think it was Showtime Comedy All-Stars.
Right.
And he, oh my God, he was so funny.
He could do 4 sets in one night and never the same material. He just had just a brilliant gift, and unfortunately, the man never saw it.
Yeah, I know. That's the part that kills you. When I'm working with Seinfeld too. I mean, he did a different hour almost every show,
mm-hmm.
or different 50 minutes. Every show. He writes every single day. He writes a good 5 hours a day because Mark Schiff is a really funny comic.
Yeah.
Who opens for Jerry all over the country.
Yeah.
And Schiff and I did a gig recently. We had to drive a couple of hours to a gig, and he was just talking about how unbelievably inspiring it is to watch Jerry write during the day. That he doesn't take a day off from writing. He's just always doing it, and that's the other thing. A lot of comics I think they want to do stand up just as a stepping stone to get them to the next thing.
Yeah.
To get a sitcom, to get an agent, to get whatever, as opposed to just doing it for the love of that art in itself,
Yeah.
Stand-up it's funny. I left stand-up to be a writer I left stand-up for over 10 years, almost 15 years, when I was writing on shows. And now I'm back doing it again all over the place. I'm doing my play, but I get stand-up gigs all over the place.
Oh, that's great.
Fundraisers and, gigs where they hire me to be the entertainer. And we always go back to it, It's like my first love. And I still love it. I love it so much, and I'm back to writing material and trying it. I just did Carol Montgomery, a wonderful comedian out of New York. She has this great thing now called Women of a Certain Age,
mm-hmm.
and they just did a Showtime special, Women of a Certain Age, some all New York comics, and so we just did a big show at the Comedy Store Wednesday night last week. And
I was there Thursday night.
What?
I was there Thursday night.
Oh, well, you missed us. We were there Wednesday night, and it was killer. But it was that Kathy Ladman had never heard before, because I was on the bill with Kathy. And we drove down together. I said, I'm trying new materials just so you'll know that I have new material. and it was cool because, it worked.
Yeah.
This stuff worked. And what's a better high than that?
I know, it's remarkable. Really quickly, Monica, what's your favorite joke of all time? It can be it can be yours, it can be anybody else's.
Oh my God, my favorite joke of all time? Oh God, I'd have to really think about that. See, there's choke jokes, and then there's bits, like when Pryor, I think one of my favorite moments is when Richard Pryor, he's talking about how he got these monkeys that a producer gave him,
Yeah.
and they died, and he was all sad. And he does a hilarious bit about the monkeys. But he's sitting outside in his yard, back in his yard, and thinking about the monkeys and the dog that comes over the fence and goes, "Hey, Rich, what's the matter?" And he goes, my monkeys died. Those monkeys that were in your house, they died? Damn, I was going to eat them too. But it's just the voice of the dog talking to him, and it was just not only was it funny, but it was heartfelt and a communication between a man and a dog, and I don't know, he just made it funny. But my favorite joke of all time, I don't know, I've got so many. Oh God.
Okay, let me tell you this one. My friend told me this, who's a comedian. She told me this a month ago, and I just can't stop thinking about it. It's so damn wrong and hilarious.
What is it?
Okay, how do you make your wife scream twice?
How?
You fuck her up the ass and then wipe your dick on the curtains.
Oh, yes, that is funny. My son is I think one of my favorite jokes, this is going to sound really silly, because it's not a stand-up comic joke, but we're avid hockey fans. And when my son I had season tickets to the Kings before my son was born, and then I started taking him to the games. We kept those seats for almost 9 years when the Kings played at the Forum.
Yeah.
So my son grew up being an avid hockey fan, and he plays hockey today, actually. So he said to me, he was 5 years old. He said, "Mom, I think I made a joke." I go, "Okay, what is it?" He goes, "Knock, knock." Who's there?
Who's there?
Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky who? Wayne Gretzky who? What are you, crazy?
That is pretty good.
And I said, "Oh my God, that's a really funny joke for a 5-year-old." So, I could quote some of the greatest jokes of all time. I could quote great jokes from my act, but I think my favorite joke is probably that one, because it was my son trying to show me he was funny. And it's like my father said to me, "Kid, you're funny." And then here it's like full circle, It's me saying to my kid, "Kid, you're funny." And it just it's kind of like the circle of life and in a funny family. So there you go.
Really quick, I'll tell you my favorite Schimmel joke. Oh God, it kills me. He's talking about phone sex, and he's like, I don't think I would ever want to be involved in phone sex because I'm afraid this is going to happen. You got your dick out? Yeah. Are you jacking off? Yeah. Your mother wants to talk to you. That kills me. Every time I hear it, it kills me.
Oh, God. Schimmel, I remember he said, there's this hand cream.
Yeah.
There's this cream that you rub on your dick
Yeah.
to enlarge your penis. He could. Well, but if you're rubbing it on your dick, wouldn't your hand get big, too?
Yeah.
So he makes me laugh. David Tell makes me laugh.
Oh, yeah. I love David Tell. He's...
A good friend will help you move. A best friend will help you move a body.
I think it's wrong to do drugs, but I also think that if you have a hot cousin, you should fuck her at least one time.
Oh, my God. We could do this for hours, quote really funny comics, but, I'll tell you, the other day, I was sweeping my kitchen floor, and it made me think of Elaine Boozler. Elaine Boozler had this great joke. My mother always says, my floor is so clean you could eat off it. And she says, well, you could eat off mine too, Mom. There's thousands of things. So, meaning,
Yeah.
But the beauty of that for me was that here I am. I'm not watching a comic on TV. I'm not watching a comic in a club. I'm sweeping my floor, and I think of a great joke that that Elaine Boozler wrote, and that made me laugh. And maybe that's the legacy,
Yeah.
That you remember a joke, you remember what made you laugh, and you could be doing something as simple as sweeping your floor, and you just give that comic their due,
Yeah.
So I'm just really lucky that I'm in this. The comics that came up in the 80s and 90s and the late 70s, we're a real club, You're right, it is different now. And and we're all so close, and we've all found each other on Facebook, and they're still making me laugh, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
On Facebook, comics are making me laugh, and that's the beauty of it. We shared a ton. I think that's why when Mitzi Shore died, and then a month later, Harry Anderson died.
Yeah.
We just all remember that time, and I think we weren't just mourning the death of Mitzi or the death of Harry. Excuse me, my dog literally just walked by me, and her tail literally went up my nose. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry. So I think we're mourning an earlier time when we were young, and the whole life of a comedian and all the possibilities were in front of us. And when someone like Mitzi dies or Harry Anderson dies, you're just mourning. I think to the comics who came up in the 80s, there was a deeper level when they died, because I think we were mourning the glorious days that were, and our youth with all the promise before us, and so that's why I think for comics of the 80s and 90s, losing those people, losing something, Mitzi Shore, so many of us owe our careers to her. She was the first person who put me to work. And so, I think we all shared that in common, that feeling. because we're like a family, you know. Oh, God, I'm getting really corny. I swear, people listening, I'm funny. I'm just I'm feeling really corny right now. So.
I have a corny question. Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
It's an innie. I just had to look. It's an innie.
Nice. I have an outie.
And I'm proud. I'm proud to be with the innies.
Yeah, I have an outie.
Well, that sounds like you have a very fancy car. See, when you say to people you have an Audi, they don't automatically go to your belly button anymore.
Well, Monica, this has been so much fun. I just feel so blessed that I got to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you. And if you ever come down here, let me know. And my show, Not That Jewish, is back in L.A. It ran off Broadway for 7 months, and now it's back every Thursday at the Braid in Santa Monica. And if you're ever down here, let me know if you're coming down.
Yeah, I was down there for vacation last week. I'm going to move there in August.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, I don't know if it'll still be going, but the other play I'm in will be going, so.
Awesome.
That's called Miss America's Ugly Daughter. That's a whole nother podcast. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was fun.
Oh, my pleasure. And keep me in the loop with your shows and stuff, and I'll come check it out.
Great. All right, this was fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much, Monica. You have yourself a great rest of your day.
Thank you, you too. Bye, Tommy.
Okay. Bye-bye, Monica. Well, there you have it. Monica Piper. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Monica. I just love talking about comedy in the old days from the old school comedians. It's just so awesome that I had the opportunity to talk to them, because so many comics of my generation are fuckheads that don't know shit about comedy. So it's really good to talk about it. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page